Well, we all know food storage is important, but often what is really emphasized is our meats or our entrees. And there are other things that are important too. And I think it would be helpful if you actually did an exercise. Every time you're making a meal, just jot down what you used. And do this for a couple weeks, a month, and then tally up and what did you use the most. Now, I'm not talking about, your main course like your meat or your soy product, but the other things you use. And I'm really not talking about vegetables either, your side dishes. But what are the other ingredients that you use just about every day or at least weekly in your meals? Jot those down and tally them up. I thought I'd share with you what my top 10 is. And your top 10 may be different because we all have different dietary requirements and we don't all cook the same. So I would really be interested to find out what your top 10 or top 5 are. If you would list those below in the comments. I think we could all learn from each other. But today I'm going to share my top 10. Well, I think it's no surprise. Number 1, this is my salt shaker. Really, it's a bar shaker, but love it for salt. My mother had something similar. And I use a lot of salt. I actually have low blood pressure, so salt isn't a problem for me. And I usually store the salt in here, but I have also Celtic salt and kosher salt, pickling salt, a variety of different salts. But this is my number 1 item that I'm using all the time when I'm cooking. Now for you, maybe you're using a salt substitute, but it's really important to make sure you have enough in your food storage. Now I'll take you downstairs and show, I think I did a video about, it might have even been 5 years ago, on how I store my salt. And let's see if that's still working and if it has caked or it will still pour out. Here's one of my storage of salt. Let's open it up. If you can see in, what I did with that was just put bags of rice in and just put a hole in it. I didn't really open them up all the way. So this was done 2014, I believe. So let's go upstairs and see if this actually, oh yes, it's September 2014, so almost 5 years old. Let's go upstairs and see if we can pour it. Open it up. See if any pours at all. Okay, some is pouring, but it is caked up a bit, I'd say. Oh, here it comes. Oh, that's pretty good. So I emptied into here. I was surprised. There's a little, every once in a while, a little cake, but when you just did like this, it all became salt. So 5 years of storage, still very usable. Now for that salt, I have stored a lot of iodized salt because at one time, believe it or not, I had developed a goiter and I am hypothyroid. So I take thyroid medicine, but I think it's also a good idea if you live up here in the north where we don't seem to see the sunlight enough to use iodized salt. Now that has a shelf life, they say, of about 5 years. Salt doesn't go bad, but it's the iodine and the other ingredients in the salt that can. So for real long-term storage, if that's not a concern of yours, you would want to store kosher salt or Celtic salt. Now, what was number 2 item for me? Again, no surprise, it is pepper. Of course, salt and pepper. We use that all the time, right? Now, I use regular ground pepper, I use white pepper, but for some reason, I really like, I'm sure it's bad for you, the Lowry's seasoned pepper. So I have a lot of jars of this because sometimes it's kind of hard to find. And pepper can keep for 4 years or more if it is airtight on your shelves. But salt and pepper, 2 crucial ingredients when I'm cooking. Number 3, again, no surprise, it's oil in butter. And it might be olive oil, sesame oil, a variety of different oils, and real butter. We always use the Land O'Lakes, lightly salted. And this butter keeps in my freezer for 12 months. And I always buy a lot of it when it goes on sale. So I always have some butter. And we rotate it out. Your oils will only stay for maybe 2 years or a little longer. Depends on how hot your storage area is and how you keep it. So you want to have plenty of this, but it can go bad. So you're going to have to adjust. Now you could also have butter buds or powdered butter. It's not quite the same, but at least it will give some butter taste to your dishes. I have a whole different video on fats and oils, and you can get to that right, I never know if it's here or it's here. It'll be in the corner. Well, number 4, onions. That's right. We use onions a lot in cooking. We use them fresh. I have them in my garden every year. And with these right now, I'm getting ready to dehydrate them. So I dehydrate a lot of onions too. And of course, you can always buy at Sam's Club or Costco, those huge jugs of dehydrated onion if you don't dehydrate yourself. And that will do the job. Of course, there's nothing better than fresh. But if you can't, you can freeze them or dehydrate them. But we use onions all the time. So we want to make sure we have enough in our food storage to spice our dishes the way we are used to. Well, a close second to onions is garlic. We love garlic. We love it fresh. We grow it in our garden. Here's a picture of it just coming up this year. And I always grind it up and make my own garlic powder. So we have quite a good supply of this. And I also have some of this on hand. This is freeze-dried garlic. I got it at Walmart. I thought interesting. It should keep longer than the garlic powder. So I have some jars of this also in my food storage. Now we use tomatoes in a lot of the dishes we make. And of course fresh is great, but if we can't have fresh, I have a lot of home canned tomatoes that are diced, that are crushed, that are made into sauce or spaghetti sauce right downstairs, so I can easily run down and get some if we need them. But I also, just to be safe, dehydrate tomatoes every season, so we have plenty of tomato powder on hand. And I have a video on that in one of these quarters if you are interested. But for us, it's really important to have enough tomatoes on hand. Something else we use a lot of is beef broth or chicken broth. Of course, we use it in soups and stews, but it's also the favorite way that I make some of my vegetables. I actually steam them a bit in chicken broth or beef broth, and then I actually fry them a bit. So we use this in a lot of different ways. And of course, you expected me to say, I have all this home canned broth on my pantry shelves downstairs. Well, I don't. Whenever I'm making something, it seems like I'm making soup and I'm using the broth from that carcass or whatever meat I'm using. So I occasionally have some canned, but not nearly enough. So we buy a lot of this from Sam's Club. I'm sure you can get it from Costco and other places. It's 6 cartons. The problem is it doesn't have a long shelf life. So it's something that we could easily go through. And if that happened, I think we would be using our bouillon cubes. Believe it or not, one of my top 10, Parmesan, grated Parmesan cheese. Sure, it's great to have fresh Parmesan, but we have a lot of this. And this time of the year, we're getting fresh asparagus from my garden. And we love to top it with some of this. We top broccoli and color often with Parmesan. Of course, we use it on our spaghetti. We use it in some soups I make and other Italian dishes. And I just gotta say, we love our Parmesan. Now, you can get a big thing like this at Sam's Club or Costco. They say it only lasts a year once you open it. I have found that it lasts longer, but maybe the taste and the quality is affected. Even though it will say on there, keep refrigerated, you don't have to. If you buy this unrefrigerated on the shelves, you do not have to refrigerate it. It will keep longer, however, if you refrigerate it. The next one, and this is something I use a lot for myself or my husband, but not for my son, is love hot peppers. So I have my own ground peppers, hot peppers that I have from my garden. It might be ghost peppers or other very hot peppers. But just in case, I have a lot of red pepper flakes, because again, I love it on my spaghetti. I like it in a lot of my stir fries. Just various ways. I love to have red pepper flakes or my own hot pepper powder. So how long will this keep? Probably 3 to 4 years if you don't open it. So I always have backup just in case, because I never want to run out. And of course you can also have hot sauce if that is what you prefer. I know I said, disregard side dishes, but I have to admit, I use potatoes a lot. Not just as a side dish, but maybe it's in the stew, maybe it's in soup. Hey, I'm from an Irish background. My parents on my dad's side came straight from Ireland. I guess we love potatoes. Luckily, nobody in the family has an allergy to them, or are we diabetic. So we enjoy our potatoes. And of course we have potatoes that we grow ourselves, but they only last so long in storage. And we are of course able to buy fresh ones in the store, but if that wasn't possible, I dehydrate a lot of potatoes. And again, got a video on that if you want to see how I do potatoes, be it sliced, diced, or shredded, to make sure we never run out of potatoes. Well, that was my top 10, but depending on the season, and to be honest, for my husband every day, sugar is also important to this household. He cannot drink his coffee without it. Now personally, I'm an iced tea person and I don't put anything in it, except maybe some mint sometimes from the garden. But we get the big 25-pound bags at Sam's Club, and then we fill up these individual plastic jars, which we have, or not jars, but little jugs, I don't know what you call them, containers, that we have kept. And that's how we keep our sugar. It's easier to do in nice weather, because then we can go out on the deck and fill these up, because you can make a mess and sugar ants might be attracted. But we always want to make sure we have enough sugar. I also use brown sugar in cooking, and they say it only keeps about 12 months, 18 months. I have found it will keep years. What I do is something, I think it was recommended by Our Half Acre Homestead, or was it somebody else? I can't remember. But they put a little hole, like maybe like right here in the corner, and then stick this in a vacuum bag, seal it, vacuum pack it and seal it. And because it's a little hole, it takes out any air here. And this keeps the longest time. And believe it or not, it still stays soft. It doesn't go completely hard. So, great way to do it. Now, of course, you don't need to have this. If you have enough of this and you have some molasses, you can make your own brown sugar. But this is just convenient. And of course, one of the last things is eggs. And we have the chickens that lay them, so we get them fresh. But certain times of the year, like right when you do your most holiday baking, usually November, December, maybe January, they aren't laying because they're going through their molt, and we don't have the eggs when we need them. Now, luckily, eggs will keep for quite a while in the refrigerator, so usually we have plenty access. But if not, this year I might try freezing the individual eggs. It doesn't sound like dehydrating eggs gives you really a product that you want to cook up scrambled eggs with, but it is fine for cooking. But anyway, eggs is something that is also important to this household. So there you have it. That's my top 10, which ended up to be my top 12. But I'd love to know, if you've kept track of it, what are your most important items? And then ask yourself, do I have enough in my backup storage? And of course, that enough means, do you want 3 days of supply? Do you want a week, 3 months, 6 months, a year, multiple years, whatever? Only you can figure out how much you really need. But I think it's important sometimes to look at these smaller items rather than the big things like, meats and freeze-dried entrees. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd love to hear from your comments. What is your top 10, 12 or 15 or 5, whatever you feel like. As always, please subscribe, share the knowledge, and thumbs up if you like this video.